The move to reinforce territory retaken, remnants of a rout, working tanks abandoned, the Z painted over, repurposed for use by the Ukrainians. The Russian invasion in this part of the country has gone into reverse, literally. This is Izium, a few days ago home to thousands of Russian soldiers. Under this factory in a bunker, their HQ. School desks arranged for commanders who had fled. Today we spoke to a member of the reinstalled city council there.
В Ізюмі була одна із найбільших їх військових угрупувань, було декілька батальйонно-тактичних груп, але їхня манера управління їхніми військами не дала можливості вчасно зреагувати на виклики, які перед ними поставили Збройні Сили України.
This video shows a dramatic ambush on a Russian vehicle by Ukrainian special forces a long way southeast of Kharkiv city in the direction of Severodonetsk, famously taken by the Russians a couple of months ago. Over the weekend, the dramatic rout of Russian forces in the Kharkiv district or oblast. It brought Ukrainian forces right up to the Russian border in the north and into the Luhansk oblast in the south. It appears that the Ukrainians are pushing further into Luhansk and Donetsk, the regions that make up the Donbass. Remember, Putin's stated and spurious sole aim of this invasion was the, quote, liberation of Donbass. So will the counter-offensive continue pushing into there, or could the Ukrainians start pushing south, trying to break the Russian land corridor along the coast? Or will they pause, regroup? Ukrainian's Deputy Defense Minister indicated today that it would not be the latter.
И задача этой оборонной операции была рассечь силы врага и продвинуться вперед. Ну, собственно, эта цель была достигнута, и в связи с тем, что это успешная операция, принято решение ее продолжать.
We also spoke to the governor of Luhansk this afternoon. He indicated that one of Ukraine's immediate aims was securing the city of Liman in Donetsk, which would become the base for a continued offensive into Luhansk.
Ну, зараз найважливіші бойові дії – це якраз навколо міста Лиман. Я думаю, що декілька днів ми якраз будемо спостерігати бої саме за це місто. А далі вже сподіваюся, що бойові дії будуть йти за Кремінну, Сватово, Рубіжне. Ну, це вже Луганська область.
Although the counter-offensive happened quickly, it will have been meticulously planned over a long period of time, bolstered by intelligence from the West. The US Secretary of State addressed the developments overnight.
It is too early to tell exactly where this is going. The Russians maintain very significant forces in Ukraine, as well as equipment and arms and munitions. They continue to use it indiscriminately.
Ukraine's recent success represents an enormous failure of Russian intelligence and exposes the fragility of parts of its military operation. The Kremlin's banking on a winter of discontent in Europe as the energy crisis bites. And although Moscow says it's not being discussed, a mass mobilization of Russian troops could still materialize. Russia, a nuclear power, still has options, in other words. And for Putin himself, with no political heir apparent, and an inner circle too invested in the project to turn on him, this counter-offensive may not feel as decisive to him as it does to everyone else.
Well, joining me now live from Wisconsin is the retired colonel and former US defense advisor to Ukraine, Liam Collins, who helped train and reform Ukraine's military between 2016 and 2018. Colonel, is it possible that Ukraine might win?
Yes, without a doubt, Ukraine has the ability to win. I think it's way too early to expect that to come in the next few weeks or months. I still think this is going to be a long, drawn-out fight. As was just noted, right, Russia still maintains significant swaths of Ukrainian territory and weapon systems there. But this shows us what we kind of learned at the beginning of the conflict. Ukraine has the ability to defeat the Russians at the tactical level, and it's just a matter of rearming and resupplying the smaller force so that they're capable of winning.
I'll come back to that rearming in a second, but tactically, what do you think Ukraine should do now to maximise its chances?
Yeah, I mean, tactically, I mean, what they've done has been effective, right? Fighting combined arms maneuver, right? Artillery, infantry, armor on the battlefield and synchronizing that the fire of those weapon systems and the movement of the forces, which Russia has not been capable of doing. Russia's only been effective, right, when they've been able to mass their forces, large artillery barrages, really slow advances that are extremely costly. So Ukraine needs to be able to maintain that momentum, but ultimately, despite what the deputy defense minister said, they're gonna, right, kind of exhaust themselves, right? They probably made gains quicker than even they expected. And they're going to encounter stiffer Russian resistance where they're able to establish more laid-in defenses. So eventually they are going to have to pause this attack and regroup and refit.
And so should Europe and America give them the weapons that they're asking for? Should Germany supply the heavier weaponry, tanks, for example? There's a debate about that in Germany at the moment.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that if you believe in the sovereignty of Ukraine and of nations around the world and in Europe in particular, then without a doubt, the West should continue to supply arms and ammunition to the Ukrainians. They have better trained, better led military, better doctrine. The only thing that they really lack is mass, and that's what Russia has to their advantage. So as long as that smaller force is able to resupply, rearm, and refit, the losses that are being attributed, it will be able to maintain this success.
And let's talk about how Russia responds. Is there a danger that it lashes out, that tactical nuclear weapons are used? What are Russia's options now?
Yeah, I mean, Russia's options have been limited from the beginning of the conflict. I mean, you know, since the development of nuclear weapons, with the exception, right, of World War II, they haven't been used, and it's extremely unlikely that Russia would decide to use those on the battlefield. The repercussions from that would be swift and severe from across the world. So that doesn't seem plausible. So Russians' options are somewhat limited, right? They can't mobilize new forces. Simply throwing more forces into the fight isn't going to help them in the long run, because they're just not trained, they're not well led, and they don't have the will to fight. And these are not things that can be fixed in a matter of weeks or months. It took the Ukrainians several years with assistance from the West to build a force that's capable of fighting the way it is now. And so Russia's options are really limited, and just consolidate some gains and not much else at this point.
And if it does escalate this and use nuclear battlefield weapons, then the response from America and Europe has to be, you know, they're drawn in as combatants at that point rather than just supplying weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think Russia would cross that line. I mean, if they did, it would be interesting to see how the West would respond, right? Would they just continue to supply more arms and ammunition to the Ukrainians, or would they get more involved and actually engage in direct conflict against the Russians? I think that's to be determined, and luckily, since the advent of nuclear weapons, we haven't had to figure that out.
Colonel Liam Collins, let's hope we don't have to. Thanks very much.